Hi, Tailoring Talkers. So, a couple months back, I had the good fortune to record and spend time with a young man named John Mendez, who's a social media expert and the host of the Walk to Wealth podcast. I hadn't put this episode out till now because I just couldn't figure out how to. It wasn't necessarily the length, because at almost 2 hours, that's never stopped me before. But it was the actual content contained within that 2 hours that I was worried about. Just in the pre-talk alone, which was 15 minutes, John gave an absolute avalanche of tips and highly valuable advice on compressing time by using technology. I really want you ladies and gents to be able to absorb what John has to teach you. So I've split the episode up into more manageable parts, and they'll be released over the coming 7 to 10 days. So grab your notepad, grab your pens, get ready to learn how to become a productivity machine with John Mendez. Here's part one.
They're making YouTube its own social media platform. So I don't know if you noticed the subtle update. So Shorts is one of the updates. The
Yeah,
YouTube handle now is another update. So now everyone has their own handle. The community guide for you have to have at least before, I think it was 1,000 subscribers in order to get access to the community tab. And
yeah,
now anyone can hop onto the community tab and create posts and stuff like that. And so YouTube was trying to turn into its own like little mini social media platform. It also is owned by Google. It's also on its own right the second most visited website. So it's like if you start focusing there, like and growing there, um, what they plan on doing is making shorts monetize. So
yeah,
like YouTube already has the best like creator revenue split out of all the platforms. It's like not even close. And now that they're gonna monetize shorts, it's gonna be like you can make this much on TikTok, but you could make this much on YouTube, not
yeah.
only from the short videos but also from the long form videos. So it's like once the creators start crossing over, it's gonna get super like heavily saturated. So best
Yeah.
to get it ahead of the game now.
Yeah, so what you're saying is just get on with it now. Don't kind of hesitate and wait, right?
Yeah, don't hesitate. Even if it's just the long form video for now, but just like for
Yeah,
me, I stopped posting shorts for a little while. It was growing my subscriber count, but it wasn't contributing to my download. So I stopped for a
right.
little bit. And now it's hard to keep up with it because now I'm starting to be a guest on other shows. It's like my first year of podcasting. I might have like the all last year, I might have been like a guest on like 10 shows, and like eight of which were in December because that's when I finally decided, okay, I should start reaching out to people. And so
Yeah.
like the whole year after that, you mean the months before that, I wasn't pretty much doing any guesting. So I had just a bunch of free time on my hands to do whatever. And so I was just using it to, post content. But then I started looking at my numbers, my downloads weren't going up. And then I stopped, the stuff, and like my downloads weren't going down. So it was like no effect. My subscribers, my followers are kind of increasing. I get likes and views, but it didn't translate to downloads. So I was like, it's okay.
It's
I'll
really
hold off on
weird
this for
though.
now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's really weird how those metrics work, right?
yeah. So it's like, I'm still wearing all the hats. And if I'm gonna wear all the hats, I'd rather focus on the hats that actually, lead to growth. And so
Exactly.
I was like, let me just put this on halt for now. But like once I get back on it, I have so much content. It's insane. Like it's
Yeah.
insane how much content I got backed up, ready to drop. And I'm not just talking about videos. I'm talking about like shorts and stuff like that and ways to repurpose it. I have a lot of like ninja little marketing things that I'm gonna do.
Oh my God, I can't wait to see all of that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really, I mean, it's like, I've just kind of finally got my head around podcasting, and the podcast is kind of growing gradually. But
Yeah.
no sooner do you get a grip on, or you master one thing, all of a sudden now it's like, right, okay, so now I've got YouTube that's fallen onto my plate. And
Yeah.
I was actually kind of enjoying it. It's like seeing my feed kind of grow, like putting the first 5 video, like I did it in literally one
Yeah.
night. Like I had square eyes at like 4 in the morning, but I was like, I need to get like 5 videos up and just kind
Yeah.
of start to have it looking like a feed. And all I've done
Yeah.
so far is repurpose the podcast Zoom recordings. That's all I've done.
Yeah. Here,
But
here's
now I need
a
to,
little more, some more ninja tricks. Once you want to get into, if you find a time or if you get a VA that could probably help and leverage some time out. There's two things. First, there's this platform called Descript,
Mhm.
DE Script. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but from there you could do all your video editing on stuff there, for the podcast. And even if you don't want to do the video editing, you could just upload directly from YouTube on that. So like you just connect your YouTube account and then you could just upload the video from Descript once you're done editing and stuff to
Yeah.
there. And if you want to get fancy, it has a ton of other like video editing features if you want to like add B-roll and things like that. And there's a ton of fancy tricks, but even if you didn't want to get fancy, you could just upload directly from there. It also takes out the filler words and things like that. It gives you a
Yeah.
transcript and all that jazz. And then the next thing that might be helpful to you is Riverside FM. So it's like a Zoom for podcasters essentially.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And
Some podcasters that I've recorded
yeah,
with have used Riverside.
yeah. And what's cool about Riverside is, um, you could while recording live create clips, and they're automatically cut up into 30 seconds. And all it takes is literally like 2 clicks, and you can turn it from horizontal to vertical format, so they're already ready to be uploaded as reels and stuff like that.
Oh
It's like
wow.
one hour podcast interview. You could easily get like 20 to 30 clips easily, and just download them to your phone and just post them. Of
Yeah.
course, if you want to get a little fancier, there's apps that you could use to put captions and things like that. But for the most part, Riverside and Descript will probably help you out a lot with repurposing content, so you don't have
Yeah.
to hire somebody and pay them an insane amount of money just for a couple videos.
I have a VA. She's based out in the Philippines,
Yeah,
and she's absolutely amazing. And so it's something that I could actually give to her, to like tell her, right, learn how to learn this piece of software or whatever, and then I
yeah,
could, record videos, upload them somewhere, and then she could just go grab them from Dropbox or whatever and do all of that stuff.
yeah. It's funny.
So yeah.
And literally next week, and I'll tell you this now, but I'm not sure is this a podcast now, but
It
if
might
it's
be.
not the podcast, okay. Well, I'm hosting a class next week on how to leverage AI for social media content. So
Yeah,
like if
because
you want to have
I've been
your
seeing this a lot lately, like
yeah,
and also when you're looking at Instagram stories and so on,
yeah,
obviously the algorithms somehow pick up when you do the slightest thing that suggests you're a podcaster, a content creator, or whatever. It's
yeah,
now I'm getting all these adverts, like people trying to push, use this tool, download this app, have
yeah,
AI create your content. And yeah, I've always been a bit suspicious about that because I've kind of seen some examples of AI creating content, and I'm just like,
yeah.
that really does not sound like a proper human being.
Yeah, and there's so many different workarounds. There's so many different tools that people don't know about. So and there's like for example, there's one called Chat GPT. That's like one of the main ones that really got a lot of popularity and like a lot of people are raving about right now. And that is like a GPT stands for like a generated, something. I'm not too good with the technicalities, but what it does, it's conversationally based, and you could just type in like imagine if Google was a person and you could
Yeah.
type and it'll give back answers.
Mm-hmm.
And you could like, hey, write an outline for a video episode for me. Or you could say, write a 7 day diet plan on a keto diet with low carbs. I'm, lactose intolerant. Give me a plan. And then it'll say, what are the ingredients? What do I look for when I go to the store? And they'll pop up all these different things for you. So it's like you could use it for so many different things, even just aside from social media content. You could do it for your own personal life. You could use it, hey, create a rap, rapping like, I don't know, Jay-Z or something like that, and back in 1990s flow or something like that, and they'll create it for you. And it just generates automatically in seconds. Then there's another one that I use to create. So the class I'm teaching,
Mm-hmm.
I use this. There's this one called tone.app, TOME.app,
Yeah.
AAPP. That literally creates a presentation for you. It'll create the slides and the words in the slide for you. So I said, hey, create a presentation on how to use Chat GPT for social media. So I used Chat GPT to plan out the entire class. And then I went into tome.app and then I create a class on this and then I put so Chat GPT generated an outline for the slides.
Yeah.
And then I clicked that outline and I put it into Tome.app. And then Tome created a whole slide presentation for me
Wow.
instantly in a matter of like a minute. And then there's another app that you could use to make your presentation even more fancy. There's something called Mid Journey. That's another AI app, and it's like an image generator. And then from there, you can generate images. So let's say you wanted photos for your presentation, or let's say
Mm-hmm.
you wanted photos for clothes designs and you need
Mm-hmm.
some inspiration. You go /imagine and then create a photo of an AI robot creating social media, dancing on TikTok or something like that, and it will generate 4 variations, and then you could pick one, and then it'll give you more variations of that, and it's for free, so you can just keep on kind of generating these things, and hop on it. There's another one called another two good ones are called one's called Copy AI, and the other one's called Quillbot. So you mentioned earlier that with the AI, it sounds very robotic. It doesn't sound like a person wrote it. Well, Quillbot is an AI software to take AI written content and make it written as if a human wrote it. Like its sole purpose
Yeah.
is to make AI content. And there's things on Google where you could look up the percentage of how much AI written content it is. And if you just took it from Chat GPT and uploaded it, it'll be like 100%. And Google can detect that. But then if you put the Chat GPT, that same whatever prompt that you put in, the same response you got, put that response into Quillbot, have Quillbot reword it, and then you can then put that into if you want to get even more like an extra step into Grammarly. Grammarly is just it's just
Yeah,
for grammar kind
Grammarly.
of
I think I did
yeah.
but I've got like a subscription to that.
Yeah, so you put it into Grammarly, and then boom, you put it in there into the same, detection website or whatever, and it would be
Hmm.
like maybe 3% AI written, although it was AI just working on another AI thing. And then copy.ai is for copywriting. So if you want to do like an email copy or headlines and things like that, taglines, and there's so many different things aside from that. I was on a call with this guy who's like a big time, big in the marketing world, and he was telling me, so there's a couple more I still haven't looked into. I got it here in my notebook, but these are some ones that I'm gonna look into, that he told me to look into. So I'll just share it with you because I just so
Yeah,
happen to be
thank you.
here. Browse.ai. So
Hmm.
browse AI, what it does, it saves pretty much all your search history on your like surfing the web. So if you
Yeah,
have ideas, you know how sometimes it's like, damn, what's that one video I watched like 1 week
yeah,
ago about that one thing? You could go back to your to browse AI, and you could type in uh video on clothing design, and it will go back and filter through all your past search history for
yeah.
videos on clothing design, and then you could just surf through that, and it will kind of and you can write notes from there as well. Another one that I heard, this one is called Be Human. I forget what this one is about, but it's something. There's another one called writer.me, rytr.me, and
Hmm.
that's for like YouTube headlines and taglines. So I'm
Right.
going to be looking into all this stuff because I'm teaching a class on Wednesday. So for the most part, I already got ChatGPT down and Quillbot down because I was literally using that to create the actual class itself. And then I put it on Eventbrite, and like all the stuff that I've written for Eventbrite and all that stuff came from these AI softwares and things like that. So
Yeah,
it made the
yeah.
whole process extremely seamless. And then my email sequence that I just typed in create a 6 email drip campaign to increase to an awareness and signups for this webinar that I'm teaching. And so it ran it out. Then I put that into copy AI, and in copy made reworded it to sound more like some better copywriting. And then took that and now I put that into MailChimp. Now I'm sending that out and I just sent out my first email this morning, literally about a couple hours before we recorded
Wow.
this. So it makes you so much more productive. And because AI is already here, like it's not it's gonna take where now we spend most of our time generating stuff and generating ideas and stuff like that. And then probably like the last percentage of our time spent making sure that quality assurance, making sure it's actually a good idea. Now the AI can generate all the ideas, and then we can just use our expertise to do quality assurance on all the ideas it generates because we understand it, right? And so if you leverage it in the right way, it's not something that's going to replace us. It's just something that for the people that know how to use it, going to turn them into super productive, like mega human machines because like they're leveraging AI, but they
Yeah,
still have their own expertise, and so it's just going to make them like productive to like the nth degree.
yeah. Well, it's like you're leveraging AI to compress time. So
Exactly.
what would have maybe taken you 24 hours with AI, you could maybe do in an hour.
Yeah.
So you've just got 23 hours back. What are you
Exactly.
going to do with it? Right.
And just make
And
more
that's what we're
ideas.
trying to do. We're always trying to find ways to compress time.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because talking about that, I was listening to an episode of Diane Helbig's podcast today. I can't remember what her podcast is. I think it's Accelerate Your Growth. But she
Yeah.
had a guy on who that's what he coaches on. He coaches on teaching people to do 1 hour's worth of stuff in 30 minutes is the
Yeah.
basic concept. But it's the 80-20. It's focusing on the 20 that
Yeah.
produces the 80 of what you do, etc., etc., etc. John, like you are like a race car that you start it up and you take the handbrake off and then you just lose control
Yeah.
of it and it just goes. So while I've got you in the pit stop,
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring the spotlight back on you and get this episode kick-started. All of
Okay.
that preamble's probably gonna make it in. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for that because that was such
Yeah, of
great value.
course.
But I mean, it validates the fact that you already, because I'm presuming a lot younger than me. We're gonna get into that because I don't want to feel too old, but
Yeah.
you're already a master of your craft at a young age, and that is just so exciting to see. So I'm so excited to get to talk to you today to find out more about your story. Are you ready?
I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Welcome to the Tailoring Talk Show with me, your host, Roberto Rivilla. I'm a bespoke tailor, menswear designer, and owner of Roberto Rivilla London Suit and Shirt Makers. It's the podcast where you drop in for the threads, but often leave with something quite unexpected. You and I will meet self-starters and creators to learn about their journeys, the highs and lows, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Please support the show by subscribing if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps so much if you take a few seconds to rate and review my show. My guest today is the host of the Walk to Wealth podcast, a serial entrepreneur, realtor, and social media expert, as you've now gathered. He's passionate about helping like-minded individuals achieve a life of abundance. Through the power of the mind and social media, he empowers others to obtain financial freedom and build the lives they've always dreamed of living. Tailoring Talkers, please join me in welcoming John Mendez to the Tailoring Talk Show. John, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for the amazing introduction, Roberto. I'm excited. I'm ready to get going into this conversation, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go.
I think you are going to completely energize me and change my
Yeah.
attitude by the end of our conversation to all of these new technologies that are bearing down on us.
Yeah.
Because, I was born in the late 70s. So, fundamentally, I'm a child of the, I guess, late 80s, mostly the 90s. And
Yeah.
you're possibly looking at me and covering it really well, but behind there you may be thinking, oh my god, this guy's like super old. And the problem is, as time goes on and as things change, you kind of start getting really cynical about stuff, right? So one example in our pre-talk was you started talking about AI and I turned my nose off and I was like,
Yeah.
I saw a video on one of those things and saw it trying to create a script or create some content, and that did not look to me like the way a human being talks. And
Yeah.
I don't want to go pulling the wool over my customers' eyes, etc., etc. But at the same time, we have got, as entrepreneurs, as creators, as people who are, I mean, so take you as an example, you're pretty much doing the same as me. You're running your own business, you're coaching, you are hosting, producing, and everything in between, your own podcast. You've got the YouTube channel as well, and then all the other stuff that goes around to support all of that and to try and help it to
Yeah.
grow. There's only 24 hours in the day. That's the one thing that hasn't changed now from 20,
Yeah.
30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. But as you quite rightly alluded to, we have these tools at our disposal. They're here. They're not going anywhere. And we're going to keep, as humans, we're going to keep working on them and trying to make them better and better and better. So you have two choices. You either carry on doing what you're doing and you just kind of get stuck in the mud further and further. The more you try and put one foot in front of the other, everything just kind of comes down on top of you. Or you embrace this technology, you compress time, and you just get more done and you use it to get more effective. And I
Yeah.
absolutely love that. So I've taken already. So you're calling in from
I'm
Cincinnati.
call
No,
Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
That's it. I was going to say
Yeah.
Cincinnati. That's like totally different part of the states. Which is not far from New York, because I know I
Yeah.
have some business connections that live in. How do you say it? You don't say, because
Co-
like it's not Connecticut, it's Connecticut.
yeah. Connecticut.
Yeah,
Connecticut.
Connecticut, Connecticut.
It depends on where your accent is from. People are not like people enunciate certain words different. Like a lot of times, like people from New York say coffee, and some people say coffee. And like it's
Coffee,
all depends.
coffee.
Coffee. It's all the same thing. Tomato, tomato kind of thing. So it all depends on where your accent is from.
Exactly. Awesome. And so another thing I've got to talk about, right, is the difference in our hairstyles. Now, I'm slightly disappointed, John. Do you know why?
Because my hair's not out. I know. My hair's not out. I got it braided yesterday. So, or you might be alluding to the fact that maybe that I have a full head of hair, and we're kind of on opposite sides of the spectrum. I'm not sure, too sure
That
which one you're
goes,
going for.
dude, that goes without saying. But yes, your the publicity photos that I've got for you for when we put your episode out, your hair is just amazing. So yeah,
Thank you, thank
I
you.
was a little disappointed when you came on and it's like, what? It's all braided and flat and stuff. What the hell's going on with that? But anyway,
It's
there'll be
hard.
another
It's
time.
hard in the wintertime.
Yeah, I bet. Actually, I don't bet. I have no idea. I just get out of bed and it's like this. I have to actually, do you know what? This does take maintenance. If I don't shave the whole thing every 48 hours, my wife says I look like some kind of terrorist or something. So we're getting close to the 24-hour mark right now. Anyway, I'm sorry. So walk to wealth. Take me back a little bit and kind of just give us some flavor as to sort of your journey to walk to wealth, why you started that, and what it's all about.
Yeah, so I'll give you like a little bit of context of my upbringing just because it's going to play into the story. So I grew up in the projects. It was, 9 of us in a two-bedroom, very, very humble beginnings. My father was absent. Mother, me and her never had a great connection. And so we grew up very humbly, very scarce minded. We grew up in a traditional Dominican household where, work till you die is kind of like the way of life, kind of. So financial literacy, things like that were never really a play in my life. I never had like that entrepreneurial bug, although I'm an entrepreneur now. It's not something that I ever, thought I would do. I wasn't selling candy at school. I didn't have the lemonade stand or the paper route or whatever, like most traditional entrepreneurs, I guess you could say have. They all usually have that one,
Yeah, they always have
entrepreneur
that
endeavor.
story, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw some lemons on my mom's counter, and then I put a little like
Yeah.
decorating table outside the house, and that was my first business, selling lemonade on the side of the road. Which, not to
Yeah.
take anything away, God, if any of my past guests are listening to this, because some of them have that story, not to take anything away from them, but it does become a cliche. Like, it's like everyone expects
Yeah.
every entrepreneur to have that kind of, I was selling cookies, or like you say,
Yeah.
doing a paper round or selling lemonade. So yeah, so none of that for you at all. Did you?
At all.
Yeah.
And so fast forward a little bit. I got into college, and for me, I went into college for two main reasons. Really, to learn how to live my own and to learn how to network, or not learn how to network, but to continue networking, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not who you know. I mean, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I
Oh
knew
yeah.
that very early on, and I knew I didn't want to kind of go to corporate route. It wasn't really something that I found much interest in. And so when I was at college, this was around my sophomore year, around the summer before starting sophomore year, pandemic has already taken the world. So my two reasons for going into college had already, were thrown right out the window. And the semester before that, so that's spring 2021, right before the summer, I had dropped out because prior to that, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and Rich Dad Poor Dad taught me a new way of looking into the world and viewing the world that I wasn't learning at school. So that winter break, I went deep into the rabbit hole of personal finance and learning about bank accounts and credit cards and index funds and how to manage your money. And I started reading and listening to podcasts and YouTube videos on double speed. And by the time I came back spring semester, it's kind of like I seen a light and
Yeah.
I couldn't unsee it anymore. It's like I know I'm not learning things that actually matter in life because I just spent all this time learning stuff that actually does. So I decided to leave school to get into real estate. So me and one of my friends would always talk about life that summer 2021. Kind of similar to around the time you started
Mm-hmm.
You started your show. Around that time, me and my friend were just to talk about life and goals and things we want to accomplish. And one day he was like, "Hey, bro, maybe we should start a show." And I was like, "You know what? A podcast? That wouldn't be a bad idea." Long story short, he ended up going back to school. I had already dropped out, so our schedules didn't align anymore. But I knew I wanted to move forward with the show. And then after about 4 months of procrastinating, I finally came up with the name Walk to Wealth. And the whole meaning behind the name is for the 99% of us that aren't overnight sensations, it's a long walk to wealth. And
Oh yeah.
some may walk faster than others, but what good is sprinting to the finish line if you pass out when you cross it? And so that's how the Walk to Wealth podcast came together. And I knew I didn't want to wait until I became successful to start giving back. I wanted something that could document my journey and also share and give back while I was on the way.
Yeah. Wow. That's so awesome. And hey, do you know what I'm gonna do? I'm not gonna edit.
Well,
I'm not gonna edit this bit. We were talking about compressing time. So
yeah,
I've been coached by the great Wade Galt, who you may or may not know. If you don't, you should check him
Wade.
out. The 3 Day Weekend Entrepreneur podcast.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah. I
awesome.
actually have him as a guest. I'm interviewing him in a couple, I think next week I'm interviewing him, literally for
Oh
my
my
show from the
God.
day we're recording this. Yeah, I told you it's before we hit record, I told you it's a small
It's
world.
so
He's on,
small. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm
Um,
interviewing him for my show in a couple weeks.
well, let me tell you, you're gonna have a blast with Wade. Like he is, he's awesome. He's so smart and he's so generous and so giving of himself as well. Very, very intuitive. And like, I mean, he is sharp as a tack. Like, you are going to
Yeah.
have a whale of a time with him. But so I was telling him on a call that I was so keen to give the best product in terms of the podcast, and maybe that comes from my tailoring background because it's
Yeah.
very, very much attention to detail. So he was astounded to hear that, like, if it was an hour episode, it could take me 10 times that to actually edit an episode. So my early
Yeah.
episodes are like literally shredded to within an inch of their lives because I'm trying to make, pacing, make my guests sound as good as possible, make myself sound as good as possible. Because God knows when I started, I was not as good as I am now. Oh my God, that sounded like such a brag. But
Humble brag,
I'm
humble brag.
humble brag. Well, I'm just repeating what other people have told me. And so Wade said, dude, you got to cut that out. Like, I want you to stop editing your podcast. Just record, put your intro music at the beginning, outro music, just get it out there. Because 80% is better than not done. That's not exactly
Yeah.
what he said to me. What he said to me sounded more clever than that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, do you know what? Okay. And I listen to a lot of other podcasts. The other thing that I'm doing live right now, because I can't believe I haven't done it before, because you wrote to me a couple months ago. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And this is what you should all be doing right now, okay? So do it with me. Go to wherever you like to get your podcasts and type in, because if you're watching this and if you're not watching it, you can hear that John is amazing. And we haven't even got into the interview yet. Walk to Wealth, right?
Yeah.
And then
Two with a
click
number
on the
two.
exactly, and click on the show. And if you're doing this in Apple Podcasts, so I click follow. So I'm now subscribed to his show, and this is going to become part of my weekly set of listening. That's really good,
I
and I love the
appreciate that.
brand. Hey, you're welcome. I should have done that before. I'm so sorry. And after you've listened to a couple of his episodes, and if you like what he's putting out, then please make sure that you subscribe and you rate and you review. And I know I ask you to do this every single episode, and I know that not many people do. And it may be that you have the intention to, but here's why it's important. I'm going to use John as the example. He's putting a lot of time, effort. His guests are putting a lot of time and effort to create content to help us the best way that they can. And it doesn't cost anything to hit the subscribe button and to just give them a star rating. Even if you don't want to write a review, if you write a review, even better, but giving a star rating, it helps content creators so, so much because there's a whole other world of algorithms and all this other stuff that I don't know about, but John probably is going to tell me in a minute. And And just you doing that for a few seconds of your time helps content creators enormously. So if you like what you're hearing, hit subscribe, hit follow, hit 5 stars, and just do that rating and review thing. It just means so much to all of us. Sorry, John, I just went on one there, but you got at least one subscriber out of it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But you're right. So I was always told when I first started in sales, the best sales leaders would tell me it's a marathon, not a sprint. You've got to put in the hard yards. This is not a get rich quick deal. And it is pretty much, it feels like the same for just about anything that you try to do in life, because most of us, unfortunately, are not born. I was going to use a really crude example, but we're not born dropped into a vat of gold. Unfortunately, it's not that way at all. We have two choices in life. We either decide to take what life has given us, the cards that we've been dealt, and just say that that's our lot and kind of muddle our way through, or we try and take this opportunity that we have and we try and just do the best that we can. And that's the other thing that you've already inspired me, is that you decided to go route 2 and look where you are now already. That's awesome. I find it fascinating that so how long were you in college for before you read that book? A few months?
Yeah, so I say 3 semesters. So my first full year I was in there, third semester I was in there, fourth semester, a month in I signed up for my real estate class and I never looked back. So I say 3 full semesters I was in college.
Also, yeah, I didn't even last one. And I kind of realized that actually, do you know what? This is, I do have some regrets still. I wish that I'd completed, but at the time I was just thinking, do you know what? I could be out there earning money. I'm not actually learning anything in here that I'm really going to be able to use afterwards. I'm sure I can pick that up if I surround myself with the right people. So that's why I was kind of laughing when you were telling the story about, I went to college and then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
And that was it. That planted a seed in me, because like for me, I'm very curious. I love learning. You have to give me a reason why whatever I'm learning is actually matters in my life. Once you give me that reason, I am all ears. School came easy to me, honestly. It was, my first full year had a 3.78. So, and then I was in honor society. I was in a couple fashion shows. I was, in a couple clubs. I was highly involved. Like the experience was amazing. Then the pandemic happened, and I just so happened to, stumble across that book, and it just shifted my entire mindset. And I was like, I'd rather bet on myself, because that's the only time you ever have any full freedom, full control of your life, is when you do bet on yourself.
Bet on yourself. What a powerful message to end part 1 with. Thank you so much for joining John and I on this episode. Don't forget, Tailoring Talk is on Instagram at Tailoring Talk Podcast. Join us there for regular updates on new episodes and content. I love feedback, so do email me at tailoringtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Please remember to subscribe, rate and review, and click the share button in your player to send this episode to someone you know who might get some help or be inspired by the amazing avalanche of content that John shared today. If you're enjoying Tailoring Talk and want to support the show, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Roberto Rivilla. Have a great few days. We'll be back with part 2 very soon. Be good to each other, and I'll see you on the next one.